How and welcome to another edition of the Spirit of Waltham. It's People, It's Places. My name is Tom Caff, and this is where we focus on some interesting people and unusual places. And tonight, dear citizens, we have two professional, interesting people. They are professionals. They are the Northeast Masters Mud Wrestling Tag Team champions. It's known as Poirier and Foster, and they're Mud Wrestling champions. True professionals.
Thank you.
You're right, Tom.
Actually, they're Gene Poirier and Ed Foster, known as Mr. and Mrs. Ed Foster, who Gene is an accountant and Ed is an attorney. And for the 2 or 3 citizens in the area who might not know about Foster and Foster or about Poirier and Sumner, these are the guys, the principals. And I hope that slight attempt at humor.
One way to get relaxed.
Probably make more money mud wrestling.
They have, you know, I guess it started with mud, now it's Jell-O. They have these, it's all of them. I wouldn't want to be there.
No.
No, but it's nice to have you guys on the Spirit of Waltham.
Thank you,
Thank
Tom.
you.
Nice to be here.
And I got to thank Lou Nacera is a mutual friend of ours. He was down, he called, he says, a very nice man, and someone, I hadn't met Ed, but I met Gene briefly last year. You might want to talk to them about coming on the show, and so that Lou Nacera's responsibility. If we don't get this show in Florida anymore, but we can send him a tape.
Right.
All right, good.
Okay, you have been an accountant, CPA.
Yes.
Now, you were telling me since the early 50s or 1950s?
Yes, I passed the exam back in 1950. It was a little unusual for women in those days. And that's how I first came to Waltham. I had to have a job in public accounting in order to get the necessary experience to get my certificate. And it was very much at that time a male-dominated field.
Oh, yeah.
So I came out to Waltham and I went to work for the firm of John J. Harrington and Company, which was an old Waltham firm at that time. And I gained my experience there. And that's how I became certified and how I came to Waltham.
And Ed, well, you've been an attorney for 40 years.
Since 1951.
Okay,
Yeah.
the same.
Passed the bar in 51 and started practice right away in the firm. My father started back in 23.
So that's almost 70 years ago.
It'll be 70 years next year that my firm is in existence. It's already 40 for me. And pleasant years, too. I've enjoyed every one of them.
You can tell who's more nervous here. I have usually this, you know, not that I'm nervous, but I get the hot lights and the sweaters and
Yeah.
running around. So what I do is I will make you both look good.
Great.
Thank you. We need help.
Every little bit helps.
That's right.
Ed and I were talking before, and it looks like we're 99% sure you were the attorney that closed on my mother and father's house.
Yes, I believe so, in the 60s.
In 1961.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did work for the bank.
Federal
At
Savings
that-
Bank.
at that
So they
time.
had, yeah, she said, the attorney, I was
Yeah.
over her house, we're having lunch.
Yeah.
And I said, Foster and Foster. She says, I think that's over 30 years
Yeah.
ago. So how do, you have a professional accountant, you've got a professional attorney. How do you guys get, is there any egos? I both think you have likable, genuine, nice egos, but how is it when you have lunch or go about your stuff, or it's a Friday or a Saturday?
We do have lunch a lot together. We walk uptown to some one of the delis or diners and have lunch. But on our off time, we do things together. We have, and so, you know, although we could imagine living with a real CPA that would be, and a real lawyer that was at it all the time, could be tough. But we go fishing together. Gene took up fly fishing a couple of years ago, shortly after we were married.
Yeah.
And you know, kids said, "Are you kidding?" I said, "Well, look, we don't use worms. We use flies."
Flies, but, yeah.
But I don't
And,
touch the fish.
and I take the fish out, but we do that a lot, and we use the computer together. She, of course, is much more familiar with it than I, but I've been at it 6 or 7 years, and we'll play the Carmen, Where in the World is Carmen Sandiego, we'll learn things about Europe and
think-
United States, but we'll do it together and help each other on it.
So
And we spend a lot of time together.
Now, your offices aren't too far from one another, almost in the
Same building.
681 Main Street. And by the way, they have not paid me to say this, but if you're looking for competent attorneys, I would say go by Main Street and stop in at Foster and Foster. If you're looking for competent accountants, Poirier and Summer, and ask for Gene or ask for Ed. And
Good.
not only that, but going back and talk to a couple of people, the advice you get, you're having Ed Foster on, and he did this for me, he did that for me. Can you meet me?
Well, it's been 40 years.
Now, you've been married 2 years.
We have been married together for 2 years. Yeah.
Now, how did that, we spoke about briefly in the green room, but how did that happen? That your firm was Ed's accounting firm?
Yes.
Right?
Yes, has been for a good many years. My first husband, who started the firm many years ago, back in 1968, and he worked full-time and I worked part-time. I was the Ann Company. And I had 7 children at home, so most of the time I took care of them, and tax season and the busy times I worked. Well, I got to know Ed professionally then because he and my husband were good friends. And I also was very good friends with Marie, who was his wife. And we did a lot of things together, socially.
As
and,
as two couples?
Yes, yes.
That was bad news. We were great golfers together, and we both belonged to the Neshota Country Club. In fact, he came in the year I was president of Neshota, up in Concord, and we'd play Saturday and Sunday, and then we really got close, you know, when we'd be teamed up together against other guys and so forth, and then we'd go have a wonderful weekend, and Monday we'd both go back to work, and Al would go upstairs, I'd be downstairs, and almost you'd hope we wouldn't meet for coffee, because if we did, either he or I would say, you think we could sneak out? This is Monday, you know, when caddies are playing and there's no one on the course.
Instead of play golf at lunch?
Yeah.
We would work
Take
an
the
hour or
afternoon.
two and then take off and examine some real estate on Mondays. We'd have our extra day once in a while, but that's how close we were. We were
So
very
as the
frank.
two couples got on, you knew of Ed, he knew of you, and it's just by going out. But what was it you were telling me your daughter?
I have a daughter that's an attorney also, Mary Claire, and at that time she was practicing. Now she's being a mother. And my first wife, Marie, had died, and I was doing around, learning to cook and do all those things. And Mary Claire said to me one day, she says, Dad, how come you don't go out with Gene Poirier? We were such pals over the years with Al. Mom was such a friend of hers. And I said, Mary Claire, you know, it kind of hit me out of the blue. I said, how could I kiss my accountant? You know, and I let it go. But within a couple of months, maybe a month after that, that was planted in my head. Jean came down to the deli, Sam's Deli, for coffee, which, you know, I don't think she'd ever come down before. Maybe it was planned, I don't know. But she came down for coffee to go about 7:30, and I was having coffee with the guys, and she came over to me and said, I came over to her, I saw her get the coffee. I said, you going to drink that here or go? She said, I'll get it to go. I said, you want to drink it here? I'll sit with you. She said, sure. So we sat, and we talked. I left the guys. We went over to our table. And I said, you know, we got to go to lunch someday. She was okay. I said, how about tomorrow? We'll go to the Chateau. And we did go to the lunch the next day, and from then we found we, you know, we just hit it off great. And very, very fortunate.
Now you have, between you have 10 children,
That's
Correct.
right.
about 6 or 7, 5
I have 7.
grandchildren.
We will have 7 grandchildren.
One is-
I have a daughter that's due to have a baby in May, and that will make number 7.
But 7 children and 3 children. And as raising, now that's amazing, Gene, good for you. Here you are as a professional lady, and
She's got another kid here. She's still raising.
Yeah, but that's the fun of it. I mean, you can't, and raising 7 children, that's quite a feat.
Well,
How do you do it? How did you, today people, if they have 1 child, in my opinion, is a lot of work, or 2, but you're talking raising 7 and then working.
well, they're all good kids, and they're close together. There's only 8 years between the oldest and the youngest. So they all grew up together, and they're all just good kids. And Al was great with them, and we did. We had a good time, and they're all close now, and it's wonderful now that they're all grown up. They're all good friends.
And your three are grown up?
My three are grown up and educated. One's a school teacher. She teaches. My youngest is Helen. She teaches in the Newton school system, special needs. And my oldest is a lawyer and now a mother. And my middle child is a special child who went through 766 here in Waltham and Perkins School for the Blind and is now a full-time employee. She's a dishwasher over in Bel Canto
That's
Restaurant
good.
in Lexington. She's
Oh, that's good.
so they're all grown up and
Yeah.
established. And
You know, look, excuse me, looking at you two guys, you make a nice couple.
Oh,
Isn't
thank
that
you.
nice?
Fits. Can I get
Thank
some
you.
free advice later?
Anything you want after that, Tom.
But sometimes, when I spoke to Ed last week on the telephone, it was, I've seen him around town, never had been introduced, we never met. You can, 10 or 15 minutes on the telephone is, you know, hello, polite, nice gentleman. I think you have a way about you that's been your whole life that just, you know, some people you just meet and you feel comfortable with them. There's somebody like Ed Foster. I had met Gene a year ago, the same thing, because as a salesman and doing the show, The Spirit of Waltham, into personalities, into people, it's all volunteer. You don't want a lot of time, and you just present what you'd like to be on the show. This is what it's about. And some people, oh, I have to think about it. I don't like it. And we didn't speak about that last year, but just meeting you and talking about some little business and doing that, you felt a genuine personality. And here, the two people are man and wife. And I think in a bit, as you know, an accountant and as a lawyer.
So it's been good.
Yeah, you
It's
can
been good.
show. I think the proof is in the tapioca pudding. As people live, it shows on us. Whether you abuse, if you abuse substances like tobacco or booze or like that, eventually it shows on you. If you do the best you can with your children, your occupation, your profession, it shows on your face too. And you don't, you could be 85 and you look 50. You could be 60 and you look 50.
Probably because you enjoy what you're doing.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
And you like
That's-
people.
yeah.
I think that's a big part
And
of it.
I'm generally glad you both came on, because you combine what you have done, you, President Nishotic, and I'm sure other credentials, Ed being in the law and this and that for 40 years, and Gene was on the original telecommunications or the cable commission in 1983.
Yes,
Yes,
that
you
was.
This was even before the contract.
Now, that was when I first got interested in cable, and we were the Mayor's Advisory Committee, and it was out of our committee, particularly from Jim Cannon, who died during the course of our term in office, but they came up with the idea of the cable access, and the fact that this exists today is really.
Is to thanks to that, because
Yes.
this is it's great for us as community producers. We like to think of us, me especially, as an artist, and I don't work with words or paint, but working with people and showing what the community has to offer. This is, you've read about Ed, no doubt, you've read about Gene, no doubt, but this is three-dimensional. They see them,
That's right.
I'm saying the three people out there haven't heard of Foster and Foster or Poirier in Summer.
Right.
That makes it.
Another interesting part about what Gene just said on Jim Cannon, who was a great friend of mine, by the way. His daughter, Laura, is an attorney in our office, is a senior partner now, full partner in the office of Foster and Foster, and her name is Laura Cannon Ordilly. Well, that's Jim's daughter.
Everybody. And our dear camera lady, Patricia Holland here, knows Ed Foster. What is the relation?
She taught me how to play tennis. No, her late husband, John Holland, well, her her father-in-law was Dutch Holland, the plumbing inspector here in
Oh, yeah,
Waltham
okay, I remember that.
for many years, and he, of course, has passed away. And her late husband, John, and my brother, my younger brother, who's passed away, were classmates all through grammar school and so forth. So they were great friends, and the families, I think they went to Europe together, didn't you, with 5 kids each? I think
You're
they went
kidding,
over
really?
to Ireland and spent a month
Wow.
abroad
That's
together.
quite a trip. Well, the families usually go
Yeah.
by themselves. You know, when they say it's a small world, it is. Travel, even a community as big as Waltham, 58,000, 60 people.
This is the biggest small town that I've ever been into as far as the city goes. Before I moved to Waltham, I lived in North Reading. North Reading at that time, and that was a good 30 years ago, was a small town. But you moved to Waltham and it's the city, but it was the same small town.
It is. People.
It really is.
There's a commitment. The people work
Yes.
together, play together. It gives you that appearance of 12,000 people.
Yeah,
And it is almost, it's 2/3. Newton is a big city. Newton is
Yeah.
about 80 or 90,000 people.
Mhm.
And Waltham is over 2/3 that size.
Yeah.
But Newton, it seems, has got 12 or 13 villages, and it's like 12 or
Right,
13
right, yeah.
cities and towns. This is, the land area is the same, seems like one big town.
Yeah, it is. And it's been good, and the school system is excellent, and the people in it are good, and everybody, the neighborhoods are great.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
it's been a
Progressive
wonderful
city.
experience
Progressive city. with the
living in
things.
Waltham through the years.
128 was developed, you know, in the 50s. Since then, they've just grown, attracted industry. And
And
so
what,
forth.
okay, let's say 40 years ago, 30 years ago, practicing law was done a certain way, and now in 1990s, 92, is there, can you explain, is there such a big difference?
I think so. I think there's more standoffishness between parties and attorneys, but I also think that it's become more specialized. Whereas in '50, when I started, I did criminal law, divorces, estates, corporations,
Family
zoning, the
practice,
whole
okay.
thing. Did everything. And would be in federal court, state court, be all over. In defending, I was fortunate enough to have a classmate who was president of an insurance company, a Holy Cross graduate, and he said, "Eddie, would you like to do some work?" So I did a lot of defense work for insurance companies all over the state. And you could do things. The law wasn't as complicated either. But now I have younger people doing that, number one. And number two, if I were to go back into criminal or the heavy trial work that I used to do, I'd probably be sued for malpractice because the law is so complicated and so refined that I'm very happy doing what I do, zoning and estate planning and corporation work and that type, because I can keep my focus and I can stay up and go to seminars for this group. But to do the entire spectrum now would be I think it's very difficult.
So
for
it looked
lawyers.
like it's an age of specialization
I
in
think it
law,
is.
when,
I think
that
it is.
general practitioner, so to speak, like an MD, the way the doctor, the family practitioner has gone that way too. It's an area of
I
specialization.
think so, yeah. But it's still a good I mean, it's still good if you like what you're doing.
Well, you know, you have, if I can look at it, I have a small little sales consulting company. I do CAF Associates. If you have a salesman, somebody who brings in the business, and the nucleus of any corporation, whether it's CAF Associates or U.S. Steel or Raytheon, is right here. Without it, you can't survive. You've got the sales, you've got accounting, the control, and you've got the lawyer.
Yeah.
With that, that's the nucleus. Every has to have that. If you don't have that, somebody in your seat has to be competent in doing that. And the specialists, the companies that try to do anything less than that today, no matter what it is.
Yeah, it's not easy today to be in business. You really have to be careful. You have to be careful because of the IRS, and they have a lot of requirements that are upon business now, whether it's small or big. And you have to be sure you're responsible for knowing those things.
Yeah.
You have no way of knowing it unless you have competent professionals.
What I'd like to
consult
do,
with.
I'd say, Gene, please take care of that. And here's a bunch of stuff. Just make me look good.
Yeah, yeah.
I say that to the staff, this Lisa and this Patricia Martin, please make me look good. I'm responsible for the guests, and there's a lot here. And they're 99% of the spirit of Waltham. They run the cameras, they push the buttons, I signed up, say hello, and that's it. And competent professionals that we're volunteers and amateurs. But is there one common mistake in that businesses make that you can see today, whether it's a startup or a big, when you say, it's tough to be in business, but could you,
Yes.
in your years as a CPA, is there a trend of things you say, oh geez, I wish that company hadn't done that, or wish this person hadn't done?
Well, sometimes companies start out don't realize that they have to keep good records, and they have to read audit trails, and they go out and buy things with cash, and they don't save the receipts, and they come back and they say, well, I spent this money, and you'll say, well, how? You know, you have to have some evidence of this. And sometimes people are smart. They'll come in at the beginning and say, well, what should I do?
Yeah.
What do I have to do? And you'll tell them, and they usually do it. But there are a lot of people that it's after the fact that they think of that.
That's a good point. I sold shoes for the Stride Ride Shoe Company many years ago across from Grover Cronin, Paul Smith.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
And he's passed away many years. And just doing, I learned one thing from him, the value of record keeping, what you do.
Yes.
You know what he used to do in his books? He'd write down almost the number of people came into a shoe store a particular day, the sales, the returns, the whole thing, the condition of the weather,
Oh.
whether it was
yeah,
rainy or
smart.
cloudy.
He was planning, yeah.
So if he looked 2 years past, he looked and said, listen, I did $2 and it was snowing out. And that was on Saturday in 1937. Here it is, 1977. I did $2 and it's sunny out.
Yeah,
Something's
But-
right.
it's good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is there any common, you see with firms that in law, do they make a mistake or something, bringing yourself into 1992? Is there one little advice you could give some small businesses?
I would say that if you're talking about other law firms, probably just to keep up with things, you've got to go to those seminars. You've got to talk among yourselves and among your peers and learn what's new and that type of thing. But businesses, they should project and have a good CPA to project and help them and advise. A good marketing man, of course.
Yeah,
And have the things in place, the sales force and all those things before they really invest the money and get going.
Here's a loaded question, maybe a little early. As you both, there's 80 years of professionalism there, 80 years.
And we don't look at
You don't?
No.
You don't. Retire, are you going to, let's say a few years in the future, is it going to be mutual? Is it going to be whenever it happens, or you work and I'll do this, or?
From my end anyway, it's that there's no heavy lifting with the type of law I do. So that's one great thing, If you're a policeman or a fireman, you're on the firing line, and that's something else. But there's no heavy lifting, I like to say. And it's all, as long as God gives you your faculties and your health, you can go forever, and I hope to go forever. I really do. But I know that we can have longer weekends maybe later, but I still, I have no plan of retiring because there's no heavy lifting with
That's
it.
a good point. You could,
Yeah.
instead of taking a 2-day weekend, take a 3-day weekend.
That's right.
Is that agreeable?
That's
Is
true.
that so?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I couldn't imagine what it would be like to do nothing. It's never been my style.
Well, as a mother, and I think you're right in this case, probably maybe just working with no children to take care of, that's, is retired for some people, but to have, what all you've done, because what you've done with the studying, and let's see, 40 years ago, when you got your CPA, you were married,
No.
or you wasn't married.
I married just about the time I finished my experience, and I had my first child. So I had all the experience and did the qualifications before my first child was born. But I actually received my certificate afterwards.
Oh, I see.
And so my work, I had worked in public accounting, but then it was part-time and gradually went to full-time. So, but CPAs, it's, I have a daughter that works for me and she's a CPA. And the qualifications that you need now and what you have to do are much harder than they were years ago. We are required to have 40 hours a year of continuing ed just to keep our license.
Wow, that's a whole
So that's
week.
a lot, yeah,
That's
this is
yeah.
a week out of every year. So, I mean, there are a lot more things now that you
And they
have
have
to
peer
do.
review too, where someone comes in and spends 4 or 5 days going over all your records, our crime records, and critiques them. And it's a very serious thing. I hated to go through it, and I was only in the background. But it was a very, very good thing too for to keep the CPA
To keep
profession
the level of professional there, because
right up there. Yeah.
when you talk about accounting, you talk about a CPA and an attorney, there's the life and death of a business.
That's true.
You have, I can make a mistake and nothing happens, but if you're not up to, or John Jones, an attorney, or Mary Smith, an accountant, makes a mistake, that could be the bankruptcy of a business or a failure. It's,
Well, that was one reason when my husband Al died. I was working with him and I had the firm, but I didn't want to work alone. There's just too much responsibility. So at that time, I merged my firm with Ken Sumner's. And he and I own Poirier and Sumner. And it's good because we have the opportunity
Yeah.
then to exchange views and talk over
Sure.
problems.
Yeah.
And then the staff that works for us. So everybody gets together and you have people that
You can
bounce things
multiply,
off, and you have a
barnstorm, brainstorm.
and you put in checks and balances on things like tax returns, so somebody verifies
Yeah.
what's done, and those are all things that are necessary in today's world. A lot more
You're right,
complicated.
it is complicated. We're talking about the specialization of law.
Mhm.
It is complicated.
Yes.
One thing simple, Gene and Ed, politics.
Yeah.
Democrats, Republicans, Independents, or you're both the same, both different?
We're a little different. I was on the city council in '51, and I was a registered Democrat. I've never changed that. But I like to vote, and everyone says they vote the man. Well, it's true in many cases. You do vote the man. But we have a lot of great discussions on politics among us, between ourselves.
Well, I've been involved in politics in the background for a number of years, going way, way back to when my children were little. My husband was involved. We were involved in different campaigns for different councilors. And I'm now the treasurer for Kathy McMiniman.
Oh, yes.
And I have been for a number of years. And Ed and I think alike on a lot of things, but I think he may be a little more conservative than I am in a lot of issues.
We do have a lot of laughs. We get to talk
It shows.
about Carter and things like that, really buzzwords.
Is that, let me ask you, Ed and Jean, the secret of a successful marriage? You know, there's thousands of books written. You can ask 1,000 people has different opinions. Obviously, what is there a little secret that you guys do, a little something that you that works for you?
I think we respect each other. We respect each other's space and feelings, and that's the real secret of it. You're considerate of one another, and you know.
And we
That's very
genuinely
good.
like each other,
Yes.
as well as love each
Yeah,
other.
yeah.
And I love her children, and she loves my children. And I'm grandfather to her children, even though I'm in name only. And the same with my and she's grandmother. And but I think also we're open. If we have a problem, for 2 years now we've been married, and not without some talk.
Yeah.
And we're just open about it. And that has been a great, great help for both of us. And
Those are two good things. Respect
Communication's
and
the
open,
key.
you know, and everything else sort of fits in.
That's right.
That's good. Two fine examples we're talking about. Gene Poirier and Ed Foster, Mr. and Mrs. Foster, but they're not the Northeast champions of mud wrestling. They're professional, an accountant and a professional attorney. If you do go by there, stop in and say hello, either place, upstairs at Poirier and Summer or downstairs at Foster and Foster on Main Street. Ed, thank you very much.
thank you, Thomas. Nice
And
sitting
Gene,
with
thank
you.
you, thank you, thank you.
Pleasure to be
And it feels like it's rainy in here, sweaty. Look at the first time under the hot lights like that are here. Look at that, smiling, confident, and the host of 70 shows. It looks like I'm a nervous wreck. I'm going to take Valium or something after. And Bernie's laughing.
doubt
Don't you
that.
laugh, Bernie. Happy anniversary. It's Bernie King's anniversary, 31 years
All
today.
right, great.
Wow.
Happy anniversary, Mr. and
Congratulations.
Mrs. King. Before I go, I want to say hello, a couple of nice people, Ken and Jeanette Tromley. I bumped into them, or they bumped into me with a supermarket cart today in Star Market. They said, are you talking? Yeah. She was on the show about a year and a half ago, and Ken is feeling better, had a little minor difficulty there. But two nice people, Jeanette Tromley and Ken Tromley, they watched the show and they have comments, and a couple they liked, about 15 they didn't like. I'm kidding, but I want to say hello to them, and nice to see you in the supermarket, Ken and Jeanette Tromley. And thank you for watching, and this is me. And again, Tommy Calf, please, I want to thank Patricia Holland on camera, Lisa Gallant on camera, and back, Martin O'Malley, director, does a great job, no matter whether he's drinking or not drinking, but today he's not drinking. Martin doesn't drink. And before I choke on my words and Martin comes out and wallops me with a something or other, the end of the show, please watch us next week and go in peace.